The 11th hour mindset. Have you ever been in a situation where you want something really, really bad, or you need something to happen in your life, or you feel like it'll be the end of the world? The 11th hour mindset is about something happening for you in the nick of time. I correlate this to what's happening in Chinatown, located in New York City. Chinatown in New York City is one of my favorite haunts when I lived there. Specifically, there is, to me, it's a gigantic store called New Cam Man. I have been buying loose tea from them, specifically jasmine loose tea, for 29 years. When I lived in New York, I lived in Croton-on-Hudson. I also worked in New York, which is how I wound up going to Chinatown very often, at least once a month, twice a month. With the pandemic, COVID-19, xenophobia, the enclave of Chinatown was decimated. Many shops closed forever. Luckily, it is reliving, rejuvenating, reviving some of its vivacity. Lots of this is coming through from the younger generation of Chinese Americans. Interestingly, when you know the history of Chinatown, which is in my podcast details, when you know the history of Chinatown, it is really fascinating, and it does make you want to go visit if you are a history buff. Even if you're not a history buff, it is really an experience because you will feel as though you're in a foreign country. I think another aspect that holds people back from visiting Chinatown, they might feel as though it's immersed in the animals hanging from the rafters, wet markets. It's not like that at all. Well, they do have some animals that have been cooked, and they are displayed predominantly. I'm a vegetarian, so not something that I hang around to look at. Nonetheless, when you go to New Cam Man, as I mentioned, to me, it's a really large store. There is a basement area where I get all my teas. There are really beautiful china bowls, chinaware. There's amazing kitchenware that you really can't find anywhere else at that price. Granted, world inflation also has created some bumps in their finances. Nonetheless, if you are someone who is inclined to explore what something like New Cam Man would hold for you, it really is worth a day trip. It's located, if you're not familiar, you take the subway from Grand Central to Canal Street. It's in between TriBeCa and SoHo. Therefore, you can spend all your day in Chinatown and the neighboring neighborhoods. It does really make a nice day trip. I would stay overnight, quite honestly. Stay in one of the hotels, maybe in TriBeCa or SoHo. A little pricey, but you can find some deals. Besides shopping for the jasmine loose tea, when you walk outside, there are vendors everywhere with everything imaginable about Chinese goods. But they also have really nice fresh produce. When I would travel home on the train, I would take, of course, the subway, then get on the Metro North. I always had 2 really large bags of fresh vegetables. The store that I am so in love with, New Cam Man, they do ship. I will have their Instagram account in the podcast details. You can reach them. I reach them via email. They have typical business hours, I think 10 to 6, something like that. I believe they're closed on Sundays. This is a way to really rejuvenate something that could, at the 11th hour, be saved from more shop owners closing down and never coming back. Chinatown holds such history. As a matter of fact, when I was doing some research on this, when the Chinese immigrants were allowed to come over, only really the men were allowed to come over to work. The women, they were worried about trafficking and prostitution. The research stated that there were, 7,600 men to 142 women. I think the number's off, but it's basically 1 woman to 50 men is what it came out to be. Therefore, the history itself is another great reason to visit Chinatown. It has a lot of history in New York. And New Can is just a really, really, really cool shop. You just don't find anything else like that in the United States. With Kundalini Yoga, of course the only yoga that I practice, I included an 11-minute meditation from Har Prakash. It's called Crisscross Heart. Har Prakash claims that it will address your past and dump it. And I think really in 2024, we need to get rid of some of the pandemic that is still with us. It's only been a year, quite honestly, since many of us have crawled out from the negative effects of the pandemic. Worth your time to do it. It's a chant. You're going to sit in a cross-legged position, or you can sit in a chair. She has the gong playing in the back. Therefore, it's very meditative. Do not drive and listen to this. It's that kind of meditative state that puts you in a slight trance, but really good for you to get rid of the past. I know this is dry January for a lot of people. I am someone who believes in moderation. Therefore, if you're not completely into dry January, I included a link to the retailers' suggestions for the most popular. I think there are 11 that are listed that the retailers carry and that are the most popular mocktails that they carry. I'll give you a good idea of what to buy in the retail stores if you don't feel like making your own mocktail. I also included a short article from Stout Ridge Distillery, which is in Hudson Valley. And one of these days, hopefully, they'll be able to they'll be able to ship throughout the United States, and you can try their spirits and their wines. They make natural wines. They have included one of their red wines that, while it is only 10% in alcohol versus 15%, which seems to be the going alcohol level now, and their suggestion is to mix it with spritzer or something to cut the alcohol. Therefore, it gets down to about 4%. There you go with dry January. You can drink in moderation or just stick to the mocktails. To wrap this up, the 11th hour can be about saving something we want in the nick of time, as in Chinatown, or it can be, of course, about our own selves. What I do believe in when it comes to the 11th hour is that you do believe, you have that leap of faith that whatever you want, even when it comes to an enclave like Chinatown, through efforts of either your own or a big group of people to save something like Chinatown, I believe it does come in the 11th hour. I believe the 11th hour is our leap of faith, which I believe everybody should embrace. Believe in the leap of faith. Believe that it will come to you. Many times it's going to be at the 11th hour. Again, check out New Can Man. I email Eva directly. That might be a good suggestion if you want to start shopping online. Practice this Kriya. It will help you get rid of the past and dump it, as Har Prakash says. It's a chanting meditation, so good for balancing our brain. Lastly, mocktails. We're still here in dry January, but I hope this gives you some ideas going forward to balance your health. If you are going to imbibe, then please do it in moderation. To conclude, I am Valerie Hale. I produce this podcast once a week to help people improve their mindset. I also help people overcome their fear of speaking in public. I have online virtual classes. You'll see the link for that. You can take one class. I promise you'll gain self-confidence and assuredness right after that one class. Merci. Au revoir.